My name is Rick Firestone.
My name is Ben Bugale, and you're listening to pixelprojectradio, a video games discussions style podcast where we talk about games you love, games we love, games that are loved. And today, we're talking about games that I don't want to say love to hate, but we're talking about a certain kind of game that happens when things don't exactly go right in the production side of things. Rick, what are we talking about today?
Yeah, so today we're kind of talking about...
What is going on? What is happening?
I don't know.
Hold on, I can fix this.
Okay, I think we're not quite there. All right, hold on, one more time. I think I could do this.
Okay, I think we've got it all sorted out.
I think so.
Must have been a bug in the microphone, right? Which is my great segue king to bugs in video games. We're talking all things bugs, glitches, unfinished games, broken games, the whole gamut, the whole shebang.
We're going to talk about games that could have been so much more, games that are still suffering even though patches have been added. And we're going to talk about games that, I don't know, Rick, I've got a few games here that I really wanted to play and really wanted to enjoy that ended up ultimately, kind of getting slashed from my life because they just don't cut it.
Yeah, man, it's going to be an interesting conversation going everywhere from exploits that were integrated into the game to speedrunning to just unfinished games and what happens when devs have to crunch. But yeah, it should be a lot of fun. This is just kind of getting some announcements out of the way up top. This is, the next 2 months we kind of pre-planned for things to be a little more casual and a little less stressful before a bigger, meatier January and February with some big games we're doing. But, November is the planning up to December, which for those in the Christian tradition, you might be shocked to hear, is a busy time. Especially for those of us, or should I say those of my loving partner and podcast host, Ben. It's a busy time for those working for the church. So we wanted to just sort of plan a little bit of a buffer. The episodes are still going to be pretty good. There's a lot of good stuff coming, but it's going to be a little more casual, conversational, leading up to some big stuff in January and February.
That's right, everybody. And today's conversation topic is one that I'd say that all of us, if you're listening and you play video games, that is, I think we've all experienced games that have been broken in some way, shape, or form. And of course, we can't condemn developers for the occasional little hack, oversight, etc. But there are some games that are just kind of painful. So Rick, I think the way to open up this conversation is, how do we end up with games that are broken?
Well, it's a complicated situation. The way that I see it, it ultimately comes down to oversights, right? Whether it's an accidental oversight with the programming, an oversight with the game tester, or just an oversight with how the code works with each other. The coding works like with itself, and how the mechanics work within the game. All of these things can contribute to what's known as glitches or bugs. In fact, one of the most famous glitches of all time is the result of coding of the game kind of clashing with itself. And if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to paint a little picture.
My body is ready.
So we're all the way back, late 90s.
Ooh.
Playing a little-known game called Pokemon Red and Pokemon Blue.
And I think I know where you're going.
And as we were wont to do as children of the late 90s, we were hanging out at school, and rumors started to spread about this mysterious, broken, glitchy Pokemon called Missingno. Now, did you ever find Missingno as a kid?
Oh, yes.
I think I ended up doing it whenever I was a little bit older and was able to carry out the steps. But as like a kid, when Red and Blue were, popular amongst everyone, I never did.
I mean, it's kind of challenging, and you're taking a risk whenever you do that. whole thing. Usually people were doing it to multiply their items.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to introduce what Missingno sort of was, or do you want me to take it?
Please continue, because I'm enjoying this trip down memory lane.
So Missingno is an interesting little anomaly. What essentially happens is the player can execute a series of very specific commands, and what will happen is the internal coding will sort of create friction with itself and grind against other strings of code. It's not unlike gears kind of grinding against other gears in like a big mechanical system, right? It's simple oversight. Sometimes oversight happens by accident, and this is one of those cases. And what would happen is if you did a specific set of instructions, specific set of movements, even coming down to specifically how you named your character, there are a couple of different ways to trigger this. The code would kind of not know what to do, and it would generate this Pokemon called Missingno. And the reason it's called Missingno is because there are only so many letters that they designated Pokemon names to have. Missing number would have been too long. And Ben, what does it look like?
The Missingno incarnation that I dealt with the most looked like a number of pixels stacked on top of one another. And it's admittedly, whenever it happens, it's kind of freaky. It's kind of unsettling because you've found something that clearly isn't supposed to exist, which is not unlike how I felt in Lavender Town for the first time. I felt like this ain't natural, this ain't right. But Missingno is whenever you encounter it, it's very strange, and you feel like you're taking a risk, and in some ways you are.
Mm-hmm. It does look like a collection of pixels. It looks kind of like a blocky, fat lowercase d without the center in the little hoop. Letters have names for the different parts of them, right? Do you know what the name for the hoop of the D is?
I will find out.
I'm setting up somebody for a really great joke with that one, I'm sure.
I know you are.
But that's what it looked like. And when you encounter it, obviously the shock of seeing it is immense for a little child. It has a cry associated with it that is it's the base values of the cries. So we should have stated this up front, but we are not coding or technical or software experts. So we're doing our best to describe some things that are a bit over our head. But the base values that are programmed in for the cry are all altered for each Pokemon. That's how the sound works. Missingno has a base value of 0 for all of them. So it's a very basic sounding sort of Nidoran cry, but it sounds a little too bland to the point where it's weird, right? I don't know how else to describe it.
No, it's an uneasy sound, especially because of what we've just, basically summoned before us. The fact that it doesn't have a face is very unnerving.
And essentially what this is it's a bug, right? It's a bug in the game. And what happens is if you catch it, it can corrupt your save file and corrupt your whole game. People would use this, going off of a point that you just mentioned, Ben, not too long ago, to duplicate items.
If I'm remembering correctly, it was the 6th item in your inventory or so, that whenever you caught the Missingno, it would multiply that item to in basically infinite proportions. Like you would have, if you put the Master Ball in your 6th slot, you would end up with 999 or however many was the maximum. And you'll catch anything you throw those at,
Mm-hmm. Missingno, so the code, the reason that this is a risk to your save data, and again, we're not experts, we're just kind of trying to explain things as far as we can understand them, is that when you're bringing that code error into your game, you are exposing it to other strings of code that it was not meant to interact with, such as the leveling system, such as the typing system, such as fighting other Pokemon. And bugs don't necessarily play well with other strings of code, right? It's just not good. So that's why this posed a risk to your game. It was actually reported on in Nintendo Power in the May 1999 issue. They did give the warning that, trying to intentionally catch this error would result quite probably in the corruption of your save data. I think they ended up calling it a programming quirk rather than a glitch, which is a funny kind of
Okay.
softening of language. Right. Programming quirk, call it whatever you want. It still erases your save game. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. So this thing, nobody put this in the game, right? Because, I mean, sometimes we find things that are hidden in games that are kind of broken and buggy, but this was not intentionally put in. This was kind of left in by accident, if I'm understanding correctly.
That was a nice little inflection.
Thank you.
Right at
I'm
the
watching
end
my
there.
microphone levels because my microphone is misbehaving today.
Ooh, love that. What's it doing?
It's like I'm speaking so quietly, and it's like trying to get yellow and red, and I'm like, we might be talking about yellow and red, but that doesn't mean that our levels need to reach that point.
This is the comedy gold you all come here for.
My gain is at 0, guys. What is going on?
But you are exactly right, though. Nobody intentionally put Missingno in the game. It was just an accidental series of artifacts of code that, players somehow stumbled upon. This kind of brings up something that's going to come up throughout the rest of the episode, and it's the notion of, game testing. Have you ever heard of game testers or seen like advertisements for game testers?
I have, and from what I understand, it is not nearly as glorious or as fun as people make it out to be, because you have to like jump at a wall for 20 straight minutes to make sure that the wall doesn't give out.
Actually, though, it sounds like a really miserable job for somebody that wants to like video games. For those that don't know what game testing is, it's somebody's job 40 hours a week, 5 days a week, is sometimes more, is to play one game and do every combination of things you could possibly think of to try and break it. And that's why things like Missingno get through, because these series of steps to get Missingno are so particular and so most people would not realistically do these steps in an actual run, which is why it was overlooked. And also why doing basic things like jumping into a wall, like you said, Ben, doesn't result in anything, because that would be a bug that's found like lickety-split, right?
Yeah, I mean, game testing, as much as, and you really hit the nail on the head when you talk about like people who love games. I don't think game testing is for people who love games. I think it's for people who are, I don't want to sound, reductive here or diminutive, but like, I think it's for people who are, fine with helping make a product happen, but like are really just content to sit with a controller in their hands for 8 hours a day. You know what I mean? And just, I don't want to say just collect a paycheck, but really just kind of collect a paycheck.
There's a certain masochism that comes along with doing something like this. I know at my job, like when we do new releases, like for the platform, we used to have days where we would just try to break it. And you just have to try just a bunch of combinations of things until you find, the coding for whatever reason this time is causing this to do this. Got to fix that. And it's tedious. You have to have a very, I think, logic-driven mind to do some of this stuff. It's wild, dude. Like it's fun for a little bit because like puzzles, and then after a while, it's like, oh, this is tedious. At least to me. I don't know. We're not here to yuck anybody's yum, as they say.
It depends on what aspects of testing you're getting to participate in, because if you're able to, try out the puzzles and stuff, it's like, yeah, this is cool. But then if it's like, hey, I need you to walk around this, football field for 6 hours and make sure that Ben Roethlisberger doesn't fall into the abyss. Like, I don't know. He already did, everyone. Spoiler alert. He already did.
In some ways, yes, this is true. Boy, what a bad season the Steelers are having.
Lord.
Anyways, I wanted to lead off with Missingno because it's a very popular one, as we found out, because we got quite a bit of community contributions for this one.
We did, Rick. And I have a question for you, but I'm going to ask you to hold that pin somewhere. We can talk about it after we read these things.
Yeah, okay. Pin is firmly held. I'm going to go through the Twitter ones first because we got 3 on Twitter, 3 on Instagram, and then a bunch in the Discord, which, by the way, if you like the show and you want to hang out and participate more and stay up to date on things, please join the Discord. I get a little twinge of dopamine every time I see somebody new join. and it's pretty great. Somebody new joined today that I don't think either of us know. So shout out to them. What is their name? Mira
We're gonna
Panda.
Come get you. Mira Panda, brace yourself.
Shout out to you, and shout out to everybody there. So come on down if you want to hang out. It's fun.
We
But
are
anyways,
friends.
we're going to shout out a lot of people today.
I'm
Starting
gonna shout
with,
the whole time. I'm so sorry.
I want to shout. I want to shake your hand. I want to start with Eric from the Unlockables podcast, friend of the show, terrific podcast. He led off with Missingno. I think it's fair to say the Missingno glitch from Pokemon Red and Blue defined my childhood, he says.
Eric, I really want to know more about how it defines your childhood, but that's for another time. No, let's talk about, let's unpack that. No, here. I completely forgot about it until you brought it up today, Rick. So that was man, good call.
Mm-hmm. Alejandro from A Random Gamers podcast, another great show. The old classic swing set from GTA 4. Could have a lot of fun with the car physics getting crushed or flying around on the map. The Grand Theft Auto games are rife with glitches and ways to exploit the sandbox, and that's part of the fun. In fact, that's the only reason that I ever played them. I never did the story.
No, I don't. Same. I remember there was one time where I had a sniper rifle out and I was shooting the moon and I was changing its size and I was like, this is dumb.
Ben is like, that goddamn moon, I can never shoot it in Majara's mask, and I'm going to take my revenge here.
That's hilarious. And I did.
The duplicitous bastard. And I left this one for last because it kind of ties into one of the Instagram responses that we got. I believe this is Nick from Friday Night Gamecast. Another great podcast. I'll never forget the first time one of my friends showed me how to jump outside the level framework in Halo and run around behind all the geometry to find skulls quick. Fascinating to see what the devs look at on the back end.
I completely forgot how broken Halo 2 could be.
You have significantly more experience with it than I do. I only ever played with friends at like sleepovers and stuff.
Pretty much the same for me too. I was, quote, not allowed to have Halo, end quote, but I played it all of the time. Yeah, no, you could, I think that, was Halo 2 the game that you could also start to make your own maps, if I'm not mistaken? I think so. Yeah, no, that was just, that was giving, that you were kind of allowed to play God there, so of course there were bound to be oversights whenever you give someone the ability to put boulders wherever they want and to put spawn vehicles and other weapons wherever. It's a whole thing. But, I mean, at the same time, it wasn't so broken that you disrespected the game. You just found something and milked it for all it's worth.
Do you want to take us into the Instagram responses?
I would be happy to. So that was Still Loading podcast has said that they love the super jump glitches in Halo 2. I had so much fun doing them. Did you ever do super jump? I don't remember super jump.
I explicitly didn't look it up beforehand because I was like, yeah, Ben knows this.
I completely forget what super jump is.
Do you want to take 3 guesses?
I would imagine that you can jump very high.
I think you got it in 1, Ben.
I think I did. No, I just don't remember
No
how to
notes.
execute it, how to make it happen.
I'm not sure either. I thought the other Instagram responder, our dear friend Matt, I thought he mentioned it.
Yeah, Matt Altamir does say he's on Instagram as Matt Iltomir, or just Matt_Tomer. And Matt, I hope you're listening right now, and I hope you're ready, because it's gonna happen. And you're going to be sorry. Matt also says Halo 2, Super Bounce, button glitches, BXR, BXB, etc.
So I guess that's the combination you would need to press to do the super jumps. It
Or
sounds
something.
like.
Yeah. I didn't play enough of those first-person shooters until I had Call of Duty Black Ops on Xbox 360. Then I had my own big boy game like that. And Matt also said Call of Duty 4, old school mode, allows for higher jumping, and Michael Meyers out of map glitches. Now, when you say Michael Meyers, are you talking about the actor or the fictional murderer? Probably the murderer.
Oh, I would assume that it was like a Shagadelic baby kind of thing.
Could you imagine running into the voice of whatever he's done?
It's like those Gary's Mod mods. I don't know how else to say that. Those Gary's mod mods where they mod the monsters chasing you as just a big face and put in a sound file, and it would just be a big sound file of his face, of Michael Myers' face, and the sound file would be an extremely bass boosted just loop of him saying, "Do I make you horny, baby?" just over and over and over and over.
Why?
I don't know, man. I'm in rare form today. I'm in a weird mood.
It's good.
Before we get to the Discord contributions, because there were quite a few on Discord, I was thinking maybe we could talk about a few more glitches, bugs, just unfinished business that we found researching up for this topic.
Well, Rick, before we do that, can I grab my pen?
Oh, yes, please. I've been holding it so dearly.
Oh, my pin for you, Rick, is what is your personal favorite broken experience in a game? Like, what is something that you have sought or you have done, etc.?
Well, I was actually planning to talk about this. So this is my favorite insofar as I still can't believe it happened. And it happened to a lot of people. And I've brought it up on the show before. I'm talking about the Holiday 2004 demo disc from PlayStation Underground. Now, we've talked about demo discs on the show before, Ben. You, growing up, you had an N64 primarily, so they obviously didn't do demo cartridges. So this was something, if I remember right, that you don't have a ton of experience with, demo discs?
I had a friend named Anthony who had a PlayStation, and he was a Pizza Hut kind of dude, so he had a lot of demos.
Yeah, the cool thing about Pizza Hut in the 90s was if you read books, they gave you pizza and video game demo discs, and it was pretty great. Nobody could out Pizza the Hut these days. Well, who knows? But demo discs were a really cool part of growing up in the early video game scene, well, in the late 90s, early 2000s, because it was a convenient way to try out a bunch of different upcoming games. One of my personal favorites had Final Fantasy VIII, the first little bit of it, and the first little bit of Brave Fencer Musashi, as well as a terrific game called Blast Chamber that I wish they would bring back. But this was a holiday demo disc, a special holiday edition, that came out in 2004 for the PlayStation Underground, which was like a US Sony fan club. On this demo disc was a demo of a game called Beautiful Joe 2, which was set to arrive on consoles in December.
Was that beautiful or beautiful?
Beautiful, V-I-E-W.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like a cell-shaded beat-em-up. I've never actually played it aside from this, and I'm going to get to why in a second. Because the coding of this game, this is a very major glitch that went through en masse, had it set such that if you played this demo of Beautiful Joe 2, it would erase every single file on your PlayStation 2 memory card.
No.
Every single file. And Ben, it happened to me. It erased everything. Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy X, or, well, maybe not Final Fantasy X. I don't remember if it was out at the time.
No.
But everything. I vaguely remember Final Fantasy IX getting erased too. So I don't remember if it also did that to PS1 memory cards or if I had some kind of a hybrid memory card. I'm not sure. But it erased everything of mine. So much so that to this day, this singular incident to this day has instilled a habit in me where I save 3 times. Every time. I save in 3 files. Every game, every time.
And this was a thing that happened nationally.
En masse. Sony had to give a mass email. They did the whole, sincerest apologies for any inconvenience, etc., etc.
Not good enough. Fix it.
Yes, they also said in a bit of a sort of fuck you, take it kind of way. They were like, you can enjoy everything on the disc provided that you just remove your memory cards. It's like you should have just not said that. honestly. But that was my one big thing that I wanted to bring to the show today. I remember it very clearly. If this happened to you, please tell me, because I've never met anybody else that this happened to. But I know that it was like, it's on the internet. Like, people talk about it. And oh my God, dude, it was wild. I was so pissed as a kid. And that's actually how I learned what, like, glitches were pretty much.
This is a horrible story. I feel so, I mean, it's not a horrible story, but it's a horrible story, Rick. I feel so much for you. And this sometimes, speaking of corrupting files, when we use things, not to kind of get too far ahead here, but like whenever you use things like Game Shark, and you can get into modding your games that way. I did that with a Kingdom Hearts file once, and I lost my most dear #1 file on that whole system. But the fact that Beautiful Joe, I mean, that should never have happened. Never.
Yeah, I mean, you can look back at it and laugh at this point. We should do Beautiful Joe. If we're still going in 2024, we should just do that as a little nod. Or not. Anyways, so
I don't want to erase my computer, Rick.
Yeah, this time Stoney comes to your house and says, "This is ours now." So we're kind of getting into this notion of modding. Do you have any other sort of just like accidental glitches or accidental bugs you wanted to talk about? Because I do have one before we move on to modding.
I was going to say my favorite one was, and I've never actually achieved the 4th day glitch in Majora's Mask. I don't know if that's real. If it is, please let us know. You know how to reach out to us. And if you don't, well, we're going to tell you later. But there was one glitch in Majora's Mask that I did once, and I sought it for years following. I was a Zora in Zora's Domain, or whatever that place is called, but out in Great Bay. And I was swimming into a corner, which should have made him like grunt and then like kind of fall over. But I hit the corner just the right way, and the Zora started to fly. And I was like, sweet baby Jesus, a flying Zora. And I, not that my parents were ever into video games, but I would just sit there swimming in that little corner over and over again, just trying to hit things just right to make the Zora fly. And, I'd get him up in the air for a moment. And I was like, yeah, let's just go up. And then he would like drift into the water. Rick, I lost so many hours to that.
That's wild, dude. Speaking of the 4th day glitch, yeah, they brought it up quite a bit in Ben Drowned. I never heard of it before, so I just assumed that it was the story making something up for the story's sake. But yeah, who knows?
I don't yet.
So I have one more thing before we move on to things like modding and things like exploiting the game to create things. I had one more unintentional little oopsie, and it's with a game called Civilization. And this is known as the nuclear Gandhi bug, the nuclear Gandhi glitch.
I'm excited to hear about this. You were telling me a little bit earlier.
So I've only ever toyed with Civilization, Civ 6 to be specific. It wasn't at the time a game that was for me, but I love everything about this. So in the Civilization games, it's in the title, you are kind of building up civilizations, living through society, conquering if you want to, waging wars if you want to, and there are historical figures that become AI. One of them, obviously, is India with Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi. Now, behind the scenes was like a sort of stat system for each of the leaders and countries, civilizations. I'm using the word to define the word, but one of the stats was aggression. Some sources say 1 to 12, but the legend is 1 to 10. That's kind of immaterial here. Gandhi's aggression was set to the lowest possible, and the only one in the game to be as such as 1. An aggression level of 1 out of 10. Makes sense, right?
You would hope.
Now, the game was set up so that once a government changed its form into democracy, which in the game is preferred by peaceful nations like India, no comment on that for real life. Once you change the government to democracy, aggression levels decrease by 2. In the case of Gandhi, this would go down to -1. Now, if you know anything about integer systems in computers and scaling, you know that this could be a problem. So I'm just going to read the next paragraph verbatim because I think this is terribly funny. However, the aggression level was stored as an 8-bit unsigned integer variable that could only store values in the range from 0 to 255. The negative value would therefore result in an integer overflow, specifically an underflow, with the value being stored as 255 and Gandhi becoming about 25 times more aggressive than the most aggressive leaders in the game. And what would happen is Gandhi would immediately develop nuclear technology and relentlessly attack other nations with nuclear missiles.
I'm crying. I'm so sorry.
Gandhi discovered democracy and immediately said, "You're all done. You're through. It's happening. This is the moment."
He was like, democracy, my ass. And just went for full dictatorship of the planet. Oh my God.
Now, once this was patched out in later versions of the game, but the developers liked it so much that they re-implemented it in successive games, like as a little Easter egg. Some sources say this first appeared in Civ 2.
I'm so sorry. I'm broken now. That's too good.
Yeah, dude, Nuclear Gandhi. I love it so much.
Please keep going. Don't let me interrupt you.
No, that's it. I'm done. It's become a bit of like an internet meme.
Nothing like Googling Nuclear Gandhi. That's great. I think this is where the phrase "that escalated quickly" was born of. Is the fact that like you make Gandhi so peaceful that he literally becomes omnipotent and full of holy rage. Oh my God, Rick.
I love it. I love it. But that is the last one that I wanted to bring up in terms of accidental little oopsies. Pretty big oopsie for Gandhi to nuke the entire world, if you're asking me. But do you want to move on to sort of like modding things?
I don't know how to follow this up, Rick.
Let's talk a little bit about modding the game and sort of breaking the game using cheats and mods and things like that. So the experience that I most recently have had with this was when I played Skyrim back in like 2015 or so.
Oh no.
And playing any Bethesda game on PC gives you access to what's called console commands. And it's where you could type in script that gives the game a command. So you could spawn a cattle. You can alter your stats. You can alter your walk speed, which is generally what I do in every like Elder Scrolls game. Well, that's not true. At least Skyrim, I would raise my walking speed by just a little bit. But you can also, pretty much spawn whatever you wanted. And when I played Skyrim last, this was when I was working with a light opera company. I had a lot of downtime because saxophone isn't used in a lot of early musical theater and operettas. And I remember spawning as many cattle as I could to the point where they would sort of just be flying through the sky because the physics engine couldn't handle it. It didn't know what to do. Cattle flying everywhere. I think at the time I had a lightsaber too. I spawned a lightsaber because why not? Skyrim. And of course, the infamous Macho Man Randy Savage Dragon and Thomas the Tank Engine Dragon were also mods that I used a lot.
Oh, absolutely. I love the Thomas the Tank a lot. A recent one that I've seen someone do was they made the dragons the state of Ohio. And I am just trying not to laugh anymore because it's just like, imagine the silhouette of Ohio just landing in front of you and torching a village. I mean, it's kind of how Ohio is.
Yeah, you hear that, Dave and Chris and folks of the Top 3 podcast? That's how Ohio is.
I was in Ohio this weekend, Rick. I was in Ohio for a wedding.
Oh, that's fun.
It would have been.
Except you were in Ohio.
Yeah, there was no scenery, there's no hills, there's no nothing. Now, don't get me wrong. It's a beautiful state. But at the same time, you drive through and you start to realize, oh, Ohio's so boring. No wonder people literally left the planet from this state. Think about how many astronauts come from Ohio. Think about the Wright brothers. They literally, everyone said, nope, I'm done. Wright brothers went down to North Carolina, made a plane. Everyone else went to Florida, got in a spaceship.
Yeah, and what did the people that stay there do? Make Skyline chili? Give me a break.
Get real.
Get real.
This is, if you're in Ohio, it's fine. Just be careful.
I believe they're called Ohio Indian Knights. They're from Ohio.
I think so.
Sounds right. So you mentioned a few minutes ago, you mentioned the Game Shark. What sort of experience do you have with this thing?
So I myself personally never owned a Game Shark. I had friends who owned Game Sharks, and I would sometimes participate in the Game Sharking with them. Game Shark was it was a cartridge that you could insert into, or you could also, it's a disc as well.
Yeah, these existed for, PlayStation, Sega Genesis, Game Boy is what I used them with.
Yes, and I used mine with the N64 sometimes, but mainly when I was with friends and they were using discs. That's the way that they would go. But what they would do is they'd have a library of games on them with which they were compatible. The Game Shark was compatible with them. And what it would do is it would get into the files of the game and you could alter things, or you could set free the cheat codes that already existed within the games that you were meant to unlock on purpose, which is worth saying because we're talking about broken cheats today, not about like unlocking things in GoldenEye. So Game Shark really kind of allowed you to kind of play God with a lot of these games, and eventually they would wear off from what I came to understand. Like if you like did something with a game like GoldenEye, that the cheats would eventually, or could at least eventually wear off.
That's interesting. I don't remember having the wearing off experience. I only ever used this with Pokemon. I had one for Game Boy. I didn't use it for a whole lot. I do remember that if you tried to put too many cheats in, that the game would crash and would just stop working. I might have lost a save file, but not on anything like Pokemon. Obviously as a kid, when you don't care about anything, the quote unquote pro move is to do 99 rare candies, 999 rare candies, excuse me.
Yes.
And then just level up your party that consists of entirely legendaries up to level 100 and just sweep the elite floor.
I mean, you can do that, Did
Yeah,
you do that?
I'm just saying, that's what kids do, that's what kids do. This was kind of phased out as emulators became popular because you can just use cheats within emulators and it kind of works the same way as a Game Shark. All that I do these days is if I'm playing Pokemon on an emulator, I always start out with Mew just because Mew is my favorite Pokemon. And sometimes maybe like, yeah. Mm-hmm. And sometimes maybe like choose another random like Voltorb and start out with it too. Like I don't do anything too crazy.
I just need to hold on to that for a second. Rick, do you know who my favorite Pokemon is?
I do not actually.
It's Mewtwo.
Mewtwo. Yeah. Wait. No, we've talked about this.
Have we?
Mm-hmm.
It just feels so right, Rick.
Mew and Mewtwo.
It almost feels as right as Nuclear Gandhi. No, yeah, the Pokemon games were fun to kind of get into the secrets and into the, what can we do to this game sort of thing to go the extra mile. Did you Game Shark I think you were saying you didn't Game Shark very much overall, just mainly with Pokemon?
Mainly with Pokemon, yeah, because at that time, before the Game Boy Advance, and even during the Game Boy Advance, I didn't play much outside of Pokemon. And the games that I had often didn't show up in the Game Shark. So, I think I did it with Mortal Kombat 2. I couldn't even tell you what it did, but it was almost exclusively Pokemon.
Yeah, no, and you're exactly right. The emulators are how we do these things today. So Game Shark is really kind of done for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, I cannot imagine that a Game Shark would exist for the Xbox or PlayStation. Nintendo would shoot that down right away, I'm sure, but
yeah, Nintendo is the hardest egg to crack in terms of all of that kind of jazz, from what I've seen.
Now, while we're still on sort of breaking a game by modding, I have had experience playing GTA 5 online with friends. And one evening we discovered how to download the mod, like the cheat system. So you can, spawn yourself any weapon or spawn yourself any car, things like that. To be clear, I think you get in trouble if you do this online and get caught. I think that's a no-no.
Oh.
But we did not get caught. And what we found out is that if you set the speed of your car too high, what happens? I think if you set the speed of your car too high, what happens is instead of moving forward, you just go directly up in the air and you just never stop. You just float up forever. So we had to leave several sessions. It's also very possible to just break the physics system with that, break the weather system if you're trying to do too much with the weather. Because at the core, that's what these game sharks and these cheats and mods are. It's altering and inserting new code, or just moving code around or duplicating code, whatever. You know what I'm trying to say. Again, not a software developer here, but and doing too much of that too quickly can result in crashes. I mean, that's just how it goes. And that's what would happen when we would do this online in GTA 5 is, we would set the speed too high. We would just shoot up into the air and we would never come down. We would have to stop.
I mean, it's like the end of Greece.
The nation? Like when Gandhi nuked them, you mean?
Yeah, no, I mean, the movie, that's funny. I mean, like the movie, John Travolta, and he's like going into the sky in his car, and it's like, wow, that has the worst moral of any movie I've ever seen, which is basically change to be liked.
I cannot stand Grease as a musical or a movie for that very reason.
It's like, wow, that's, only given to peer pressure if you're not cool enough. That's the moral, everyone. Anyway, I don't do much modding, Rick. I've never gotten into it. I get nervous about it from the times that I've messed up things on my Game Shark. We all have a bad experience like you did with Beautiful Joe. The Game Shark got rid of my beloved #1 save file on Kingdom Hearts for me. And I've just not been interested in doing it since.
Why don't we move on to games that are released either broken, buggy, or unfinished? Because I know that we both have a lot of things to talk on with this.
I would say that we do. And I'd love to start, Rick, by asking you. Rick, did you ever play Hello Neighbor?
I played very, very little of Hello Neighbor. I really did mean to play more of it. Things just got a little crazy this past month. I played a bit of it. I remember I was working at GameStop when it released, and they were pushing it really hard at GameStop. And I remember how many folks came in complaining about how broken it was.
Yeah. This is one of those games that was released and was very popular. And to be honest, Rick, when I think about Hello Neighbor as a whole, it is a wonderful, scary game because what it features is AI that learns your patterns. So it knows how to pursue you. Like it gets smarter as time goes on. The jump scares are kind of there, but really it's more about like this, impending doom sort of sense. Really depresses me that this game didn't work out the way it did. And then it's broken in a lot of other ways too, with jumping mechanics that can make you fly but lose control. I don't know. It was broken from the release, and I'm still a little bitter.
What exactly? How was it broken upon release? Like what would happen?
Oh Lord, how do I say this? There are just things that there are too many inconsistencies, texture-wise and ability-wise, and I'm fine with the AI learning, but there comes a point where it's like learned so much that like you never stand a chance, and it's like it becomes unrealistic. So like there's that. There's other elements of the map that you kind of like get stuck in, or like you land on a surface and then you slide off of it, and like there's never been any reason for you to slide. It's very all over.
Oh, yikes. So the AI scaling was not finely tuned, and it sounds like, what was it, either aspects or physics or movement scale ratios, something wasn't completely finished either?
The first like 10 times that the neighbor gets you, it's like, man, this is getting challenging. And then it's like, why does he know where I spawn? Like, this doesn't make this fun anymore. That's not the point. You know what I mean? You're supposed to just spawn safely, basically.
That series has released several updates and new games and things like that. I don't know anything about them past their release of Hello Neighbor, but they definitely developed a reputation very quickly.
Yeah, I would get caught and found while I was hiding, but I would never see him find me. And I was like, oh, that's good. Nice to know I just lost without losing.
Thank you, neighbor.
Seriously.
That's one of the things that can happen whenever an unfinished game is released, is that the company reputation and the company in general can suffer quite a bit. I sent Ben in Discord an actual GIF from the game WWE 2K20. And some of you might remember this game. Again, I was working at GameStop not in 2020, but a little bit before that. But the 2K games on Switch especially were notorious for running very poorly. The WWE games, I should say. And WWE 2K20 released in such a broken state due to 2019 being a very bad year for 2K games. It released in such a broken state that WWE 2K21 was just outright canceled. So 2K games could go back and, reground themselves and figure out how to proceed forward.
That's a big old yikes for me.
Mm-hmm. And I believe what happened next was there was some kind of an update patch that got pushed out, and it would just break the game to the point where it wouldn't start. I think I vaguely remember that, but yeah, that was a huge issue when that game came out. It was released in a totally unplayable state, and that kind of brings us to the topic. This notion of releasing an unfinished game is a very, if you look at things holistically, a very new phenomenon, right? When we were, because, not to get all when I was your age kind of bit, but when we were growing up, games were released and that's just how they were. Games did not change once they were released and put out.
Yeah.
Like thinking back to your thinking back to your Kingdom Hearts and your Legends of Zeldas and your Pokemon of the, I don't know why I said it like that. Your Pokemon of the past. When you bought it, that's what you got. It wasn't until like the PS3 era, when online started becoming a thing, and that's when patches started to come out.
I'm going to blame late stage capitalism for this one too, Rick.
Another leftist slant from pixelprojectradio.
Real talk though, think about it. Like, I forget who it was at Nintendo that said...
It was Miyamoto, I think.
About if when a bad game is released, it's bad for forever.
Or maybe it was Sakaguchi, I don't know.
It was one of those folks, and they were meticulous. I mean, sure, there were things that were missed in games for the N64, the PlayStation, the Sega, etc. But, like, you get into the era of all of these online games with these big systems, Xbox 360, PS3, etc., when everything's really start to take off. So what can people do? They can put out a big, pricey game as fast as possible and worry about patching it later. And we did see this in that era. You're absolutely right, Rick. And I mean, I think the poster child for this, personally, in modern times, is Cyberpunk 2077. Not that we need to go down it for too long, but like, I'm looking at its ratings. And do you remember the hype? Do you remember how excited everyone was about this game? 7 out of 10 on Steam. And Google users said that 72% liked this video game. And I know that we say that like 1 to 10 is like, our sort of range. But for a 72 for like the average Google user, that's not very good.
Yeah, the video games ranking systems are using the same style as the school where, a 70% is bad and anything under a 60 is just the same, fail. I'm glad that you brought up Cyberpunk because it perfectly encapsulates everything that I think is wrong with this style of making games. So to your point, you said that they pushed this game out really quickly for profit, right? I mean,
100%.
100%. They want that profit. That is their bottom line because they are a company, and companies are not your friends, and they're not moral. They just, they exist to create profit for themselves. Combined with this is that gamers are weirdos, and there's this a large subset. I don't even know if it's a subset or the majority of gamers that just get so pissed off when games get delayed, which Cyberpunk was. It was delayed. It didn't release upon its original release date. It got pushed back. And gamers get so weird about that, where they're just like, oh, delays, it's this bullshit, company, it sucks. These devs suck, and it sucks. They're dumb. And so companies succumb to that pressure. They succumb to the pressure of creating capital for themselves. And what happens is they release these unfinished games.
Yeah.
And I think a third thing that we need to bring up is the notion of working conditions, particularly crunch with CDPR especially.
I mean, I don't want to be that guy, but like to kind of put the lens on the Disney company. A lot of Imagineering is not original anymore. They're all just working with IPs that they already have, and there's no room for originality anymore. So it's just about like, how can we put Anna and Elsa everywhere that we possibly can instead of, and they're churning these things out as fast as possible to make money and to be popular. And that's what people want, right? They want these things now, right? And you have to let the creators be creative. You have to let these people who make these pieces of living art, these video games, out of respect for them alone, for the people that are doing that work, like Breath of the Wild 2 has been delayed. Do I trust that it's going to come out better because of it? Absolutely I do. Like, I'm not upset about that. I would rather it be a functional game than be a joke.
Well, yes, I agree with you. And Disney is, it's another corporation. It's not your friend. They care about making money. But I want to go back to this notion of crunch real quick, because I think it's really important to talk about. So in the olden days of the 1990s, when you made a game, you put that game out, and the game was out for good. I'm not trying to suggest that crunch is a new thing, because it's not. Chrono Trigger is a game that we recently did on the podcast, and that had so much crunch with it. Folks would just sleep in their office. The composer, Yasunori Mitsuda, literally developed a stomach ulcer and had to be hospitalized because of the crunch that was put into that game. So I'm not saying that it's a new thing, but if I were to present to you, and this is an argument a lot of capital G gamers make, this notion that, well, now, because, we can push games back and we can release patches, that's going to promote a safer working environment, right? Because games, you don't have to worry about getting everything right the first time. And it makes sense on paper, right? It kind of does if you squint your ears a little bit. But the evidence is overwhelmingly against that. Like, crunch is so high right now. And CDPR went through a big pushback online, went through a lot of shit online because of how much crunch had come out that they were putting their workers through. The same thing with FromSoft. That came out a couple months ago at this point, earlier in the year. These companies are working their programming team and their devs to the bone. It's insane, and that plays a huge part in this notion of unfinished and buggy products.
And that's precisely what I'm saying with the Disney company, with video game companies, is that like there's this whole, we're here for the bottom line rather than we're here for the artists, for the creatives, for the people that make these things happen. Like, I don't know if you know this, but like gamers tend to be like human beings that also, enjoy, hopefully most of the time, online communities where they can be with their friends, and like they don't generally sincerely wish ill will upon people. Like, we love video games, Rick. Like, you and I love them. Like, we don't look at the people who make them and take what they do lightly. And I don't think anyone who really gets down into the brass tacks would. So, like, I don't know. The crunch just should not. It's kind of inhumane, to be honest.
It's extraordinarily inhumane. I firmly believe that. How political do we want to get then? I'm going to curb it back just a little bit. It's. I would much rather, I'm just going to keep it succinct, I would much rather wait years for a game to get finished than buy it at its promised release date at the expense of the workers. 100% of the time. And I'm not just, I'm the kind of guy that, for heaven's sake, I played Xenogears for the first time in 2022, and that's a game that came out in 98. So, like, I get it, but at the same time, like, I get some people would be like, oh, you just have a big backlog. But here's the thing. I didn't enjoy it any less, and I'm fine. You can wait. Like, weirdo gamers are so weird. You can wait. It'll be okay. Let the devs and the programmers go home to their families, and you'll get your game like 4 weeks later. It's fine. It's not a big deal.
I mean, just as much as they deserve peace and joy in their lives, so do you. Like, anyway, we could be here all night on this.
We really could. I knew this topic was going to come up, and I was wondering how much of a tangent / portion of the episode we wanted to devote to it. I mean, I think I've said my piece. I don't want to be redundant and just keep yammering on about it.
No, I'm good. Yeah.
Was there anything that you wanted to tidy up with before we read the rest of the Discord comments? We should talk about maybe speedrunning and exploits in the game that became sort of the meta.
Speedrunning is, yeah, we were talking about that before. Speedrunning, well, it's what it sounds like. It's playing a game, basically, with the goal being completion as fast as possible. I'm not into speedrunning mainly because of how people just break the games to speedrun. Like, if someone's like, yeah, I'm just gonna, like, if it's like Mario Kart and you're trying to set a record for speed, great. But like in shortcuts, whatever. But like speedrunning, whenever someone like jumps backward and then jumps 3 times to the left and falls through the ground and ends up like completing a temple in Zelda, I'm like, come on, I get it, but
And that's, to be clear, we're not saying that's unfinished. That's just exploiting parts of the game testing that weren't tested.
Yep.
Another infamous thing is getting the Excalibur 2 in Final Fantasy IX, which in the old days on a classic PlayStation would require you basically in certain cutscenes to open the lid and then shut it again, which forced the disc to stop and forced the lens to stop reading the disc. You had to do all kinds of stuff back then. And that's a sort of speed run thing because to get the Excalibur, you have to get to the end of the game in 12 hours.
Do you do much speed running, Rick? You ever get into it?
When I watch speedrunners do their thing, especially Mario, my brain just like I stop computing. like everything turns off and I just like let the input go into my brain and my eyes. I don't even try to think about it. I just watch. I can't think about it.
No, it really is an exercise, a practice, if you will, in remaining calm in a world that really shouldn't exist. Imagine how Ebenezer Scrooge felt when the 3 spirits visited him and he was like, oh my God, what is going on? That's kind of how this...
Wait, can you give me a second to imagine that?
Yeah, please.
All right, thoroughly imagine. You can continue.
Yeah, thank you. That's how it feels, at least for me. I would imagine that he feels very much like confused, bewildered. I mean, that's how I feel. Watching speedrunners, everything has to shut down because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make physical sense. It doesn't make emotional sense. It doesn't make mental sense. It's just like, like Mario, like climbs to the top of a tree, slams on the ground like a bunch of times. And I'm like, this feels like, and like some like obsessive sort of thing. And the next thing you know, they're like at the top of the castle and then they're pumping their fist because they like got there in 6 seconds. And I'm like, I just want to play Mario.
Yeah, no, I understand completely. Speedrunning doesn't give me the dopamine, but it is wild to watch them do their thing. I respect it. I respect the level of, dedication that it takes to figure out all of these exploits.
And that is the key word, I think, is that you find those loops, you find the things that have been overlooked, you exploit them, and there you go. It makes me so uneasy. I don't know why. It's hard to watch speedrunning for me. And I do respect it. Breath of the Wild in 23 minutes? Come on.
I think one last thing that we can touch on before we get to the Discord comments is just the idea and the notion of exploiting and abusing things in the game so much so that they become meta and, intentional. That's kind of the thing that happened with Nuclear Gandhi. Thank God that he's able to tie this episode up with a bow. He didn't give us a choice. Just hint, hint. Blink twice if we're in trouble. You can't see it, but we're blinking. One thing, this is kind of adjacent to that, but like the old school games like Pac-Man and Donkey Kong, they had what's called a kill screen because those games are, for all intents and purposes, infinite. And at a certain point, the code just said, no, we can't keep going. And the screen would sort of glitch out a bit. And it's known as a kill screen. It makes it impossible to proceed. So in some ways, that is the end of the game. But that's, you know, it's not really exploiting the game. It's just being really good at it. And the kill screen is now something that's in the meta. It's like you get there and that's it. That is all there is. Another one that I thought of was competitive Tetris players. Have you ever watched them play?
It's also alarming.
This isn't exactly like, abusing the game, but the way they hold their controller in a very particular way and sort of do like, I can't cascading motions with their fingers to get the most amount of button clicks in a second to go faster in Tetris. And that's very much part of the meta now.
It's sort of like watching someone with a Rubik's Cube that knows the pattern and they're just like machine gunning it. Like I get it, but holy cow, guys. It's sort of like whenever people are like a little too good at Guitar Hero. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if tapping is a very well-known technique on guitar. I can't imagine that they didn't plan for that for Guitar Hero, but I'm sure that a lot of people hacking or modding it helped, because you get games like Through the Fire and the Flames where you need to tap to complete it. But, who knows? There are also things like this still happening to this day. Smash Brothers Ultimate recently in the grand scheme of things anyway, a new meta was figured out called slingshotting. You're not doing anything, cheating or anything. It's just a new mechanic that was discovered. And now it's becoming part of the meta. People are practicing it, putting tutorials on it. You're seeing it in competitions now.
I can't keep up with the youth anymore, Rick.
Yeah, competitive games are rife with that. Mario games too, the infamous Mario cheat where you can kind of go, like, jump up into the blocks, run through the blocks, and then you get to the special hidden warp zone, that kind of thing. That's, in a way, that's exploiting the game. They planned for it, and they eventually added it into games purposefully, the 2D ones anyway. Mm-hmm. But, it deserves to be mentioned.
Yeah.
You want to end with some Discord?
I'm fine to end with some Discord.
Yeah, let's finish out reading the community contributions. We're going to start with Dave Jackson, a friend of the show, and we frequently tease him on the show, but it's only because we like him so much.
We like you.
Dave said, Missingno, of course. He said he still has his red and blue cartridges, which is amazing that they still work, but they're all fucked up because of the glitching.
The Barber Who Games says the Mega Sonic glitch from Sonic 2 is a pretty fun one. Can only happy in one zone, but it's incredibly amusing to pull off. Not familiar with this one at all.
I'm not super familiar with this one either, if I'm being honest. Sorry, Bill.
Yeah, Bill.
Mikey Tabletop from the Big Drink Energy podcast. He said Cartoon Network Punch Time Explosion is so what a name. Is so glitchy that I couldn't beat the game. It's a Smash clone, so if you get knocked off the stage, you die. But I got knocked off and the game didn't register it, so I just fell for infinity until I turned off my PS3. That sounds about right. Yeah, and okay. Depending on your definition, wave dashing in Smash, which is, again, another technique that kind of broke its way into the meta. It's you got to know how to do that if you're a competitive Smash player.
KG Beast writes to us, there's so many. Pretty much every Bethesda game ever made, so many that are used as tools to complete speedruns. A lot of the modern CDPR games, excluding that one, are terribly broken on release. The few I personally remember involved playing Left 4 Dead. There were a ton of glitches during the multiplayer that you could take advantage of from, and it's interesting. There do seem to be a lot of glitches in multiplayer that you could take advantage of, from standing in particular spots of the environment where hordes and player enemies couldn't spawn or grab you, to clipping through the entire stage and warping straight to the save room. And then we have a little confession. Did I get a lot of unearned wins? Yes. But did people pull that shit on me? Absolutely. And Valve would patch stuff out as they came along, but the community always found another one. A blessing and a curse.
We got one from Poppy the Keaton, and he says the Elecman glitch in Mega Man is a lifesaver. I don't know this glitch, but I know that Mega Man games are kind of famous for being very tricky sometimes.
Yeah, no, they can be. Is this Zodiac? Is that how I say this?
I think it's Zodiac. So. That is Chris Copleen of the Retro Hangover podcast.
What up, dog? The Sketch Gao glitch. Sometimes you get 99 of every item in the game, Sometimes it wipes your cartridge.
First of all, I don't think I've ever heard you say "What up, dog" before.
What up, dog?
Second, this is a glitch in Final Fantasy VI that we're going to hopefully not experience. I don't think it's probably not an issue anymore. I know the sketch glitch. There's a character named Realm that can use the sketch ability, and for whatever reason, using it sometimes, you'd be rolling the dice to completely wipe your game. No idea why. I don't know if it's like the sketch/Gao glitch, because Gao is another character, or if it's a combination glitch. I'm not really sure, but the sketch ability with the character Realm is notoriously glitchy on original hardware.
I got you.
And last but not least, we've got Vooper. I mean, it's Whooper, but
Yes.
they type it with V's. So in my head, I always go Vooper. Super Mario Sunshine Rocket / Turbo Storage. You're a Super Mario boy, Ben. What is this?
I can't say that I'm familiar with this specific one, but I do know that there are a few different things you can kind of do throughout the game that make you. I'm watching this now, and I don't quite know what the specific glitch is, to be quite honest.
It looks significantly like all of the other Mario speedrunning things that's just abusing and exploiting the physics system to me.
Holy cow. Yes, it is.
Like just a bunch of spinning back and forth rapidly and then shooting off in one direction, you know?
Yeah, they literally, yeah, okay. That's a great one, though. It's really only used like once kind of thing, it looks like, but wow, okay. It's a good glitch, though. Catapulting yourself to like the top of a map, a specific map. Right on.
Thank you to everybody that wrote in, regardless of whether it was Twitter, Instagram, or Discord. Lots of feedback on this one. Really fun.
A lot of fun. We appreciate you listening and contributing. And, you know, if you heard us talking about people who contributed to these episodes, know that you too could be one of those people. You listening. Tell us things. Interact with us on Discord. Interact with us on Instagram, on the Twitter.
It's true. You could even go a step further. We've already kind of plugged our socials. If you really like what we do and you want to support a couple of smaller artists, which is us, you could subscribe to our Patreon. That's patreon.com/pixelprojectradio for as little as $2 a month. 2 bones. Not even 1 coffee. 2 bones a month, and you immediately get extra episodes, exclusive voting power, and other goodies too.
Goodies. Sorry, it just felt right.
Lots of goodies. So, consider it, please.
Oh my gosh. What am I considering?
Wasn't talking to you. I was talking to them.
Oh, okay.
Neither of us should be subscribed to our Patreon.
Well, what if we did?
My ego is not so fragile to ask you to bump our numbers up.
Huh.
Although it's close to that. Anyways, yeah, it's nice to have a casual one every now and then, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's very nice.
Thanks once again, everybody. If you would like to suggest some of these topics, that's part of the Patreon perks. You could go there. That's, again, patreon.com/pixelprojectradio. You can do that. You could tell us just straight up. We can't guarantee that we'll do it, but, you know, it's always nice to hear from somebody and to hear some suggestions. Throw that into the Discord. Throw that into the Menchies in Instagram and Twitter. Throw it into our email.
The Menchies.
Yeah, the mentions, the Menchies.
I like it.
You know, keeping it cash around here, Ben.
There
I don't
we
have
go.
time to say words like mentions.
No, please.
That's 2 syllables. I got to shorten it to Menchies, which is...
That's right.
2
Only one now, right?
Menchies.
Menchies.
If you Steve Brule it, it's practically one.
Sweet berry wine.
There's nice sushi ladies making me sushi sandwiches.
Sushi sandwiches. For your health. Wow. Here we are. I think we're broken now.
Yeah, I think that's about time to cap the episode. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Really appreciate it. We will see you next time. As always, I'm Rick Firestone.
I'm Ben Bugale.
We'll catch you next time. We're signing off for now.